Let's now move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth topic today gets submitted to us by Manchester T, who writes, It Chapter 2 is my most anticipated movie of the year, even more than Endgame or Star Wars. The first one is one of my top 3 favorite movies of all time, and I can't wait for it. Get it? Can't wait for it. I'm hearing a lot of excitement for it, so I was a bit surprised to hear that they're not projecting it to make more than the original did on its opening weekend. I think it will for sure blow past it. What do you think? All right, so for those of you who are wondering what Manchester is saying, yeah, the projected numbers right now for It Chapter 2. Now, I believe It Chapter 1 made about, what was it,
123.4 or something.
$123.4 million. Right now, the projection for It Chapter 2 is 110, which if you think like me, you're like, well, that's odd. This one looks fantastic. Everybody loved the original one, so more and more people will come back. Doesn't that make sense? It does to me, but it doesn't always play out that way. The folks over actually at Screen Rant had some good observations about that, and they talked about it like this, about the fact that it's projecting to open a little bit less than the original one did. First, they write, it's rare in Hollywood for the direct sequel to a record-breaking movie to top its predecessor. For example, Star Wars The Force Awakens opened with $247 million domestically, and The Last Jedi earned $220 million at its debut. When something becomes, and for instance, the second Avengers movie opened to less than the first Avengers movie did. At any rate, when something becomes as huge a phenomenon as it was a couple years back, it's hard to replicate that level of performance. Additionally, It Chapter 2 is said to be nearly 3 hours in length, a substantial increase in running time when compared to the original's 135 minutes. A longer runtime means fewer opportunities for screenings per performance. Not the biggest difference in the world, but a difference nonetheless. You know, I think if you were to have asked me about, I don't know, a few months ago, do I think It Chapter 2 will open to larger than It Chapter 1? I would have said pretty confidently, yes, I believe it will. And by the way, it still may. That opening projected number of 110 million ain't that far off from It Chapters 1. It's only about 12, 13 more million off. So it's not that big of a gap that it needs to cross. But the more I think about it, and when I see comments like that, and other arguments that people are making, it's like, that's true. We always forget that that first It movie, it overperformed. I mean, nobody saw that 120 plus million opening weekend. Nobody, not anybody at the studio, none of the fans, saw it opening that large. And it overperformed. The problem is when you get a film in a franchise that overperforms, it becomes our new standard in our minds. We think, oh, well, then that's the starting point, is that much money. And we forget that, no, that's huge. If It Chapter 2 opens to 110, there's going to be 2 groups of people. There's going to be one group of people who goes, oh, it's a failure. It didn't make as much as the first one. And then there will be the more rational, sane people that go, holy crap, an R-rated horror movie opened to $110 million? That's amazing. I mean, and it's all about perspective, I think, here. Rob, you're seeing this right now. Number one, do you think it could, maybe this 110 million is off, maybe it'll come in over that. So I guess the first question would be, do you think it will come in a little bit under the first one, or do you think it'll exceed it? And if it does come in under, how should the studio and how should the fans, how should we look at that?
Well, I mean, like with anything, I don't think money is an indication of how much an investment is going to pay off. But at the end of the day, I just want a good movie. I don't care how much something makes the box office, except for the fact that I want to get more of that thing if it's really good. Now, I think what Screen Rant said is exactly right. Sequels, they don't make as much money right off the bat. Why? Because they're not new. We've seen them. We've seen the initial. It's interesting. I read It when it first came out 33 years ago. The end of summer of the year it came out, which was 86, and it's good. I mean, it's a little goofy, and I think that after you've seen the initial shock of It and seeing it Part 2, oh look, I really want to see it, dude. I have my tickets. I'm going to see it in the Dome this weekend. I'm very excited, taking my crew to go see it. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. But if the movie's good, and the gentleman who wrote us and said it's his favorite movie of all time, all that matters is that it's good. It lives up to the first one, isn't it? But at the end of the day, it is longer, and it is a sequel. So right then and there, conventional wisdom says it's not going to make as much. But does that matter?
Well, I think box office, and I've talked about this a lot. I think box office goes way beyond that, because box office doesn't just tell us that how much return on investment did the company get. Box office tells us what's exciting the audience right now. Box office tells us, what's motivating people to get out to go and see something in theaters. Box office tells us how effective or lack of effective a marketing campaign was. Box office tells us where does the audience hold, and that's the stuff about box office to me that is the real interesting stuff. It's all that information, those nuggets that are kind of buried there within the information of just what we call, box office. And that's part of the reason why I still think, well, I do think it's probably going to come in under. I still think there's a legitimate chance it exceeds because of all those other factors. People loved the first one. Mm-hmm. They loved it. This marketing campaign has been outstanding.
The trailers are great.
The trailers are great. And
you're absolutely right.
And what's the competition right now? Mm-hmm. You've got
nothing.
Angel Has Fallen going into its third week. That was number one with 12 million? I can't even remember what was number one at the box office with nothing. So I think those are the strong reasons. I think, Screen Rant and us, I think we've made some pretty solid arguments as why it won't beat it and why it's totally okay if it doesn't beat it. But because of all those other things, I still think there's a chance that it does.
But I was going to offer one other thing. Like all movies, once they go into the ancillary markets, whether it's physical media, whether it's streaming, whether it's cable, a lot more people will see the film than saw it upon its initial release, which means there's a lot more fans. And there's a lot more people that are like, I got to know what happens. And they'll roll out. If you do have a sequel that exceeds, you look at movies like Terminator 2. Terminator 2 was a gigantic hit because the first Terminator had been seen on cable and on home video for 7 years before Terminator 2 came out. So there's huge fans of that. And I'll bet there's even moms out there that were terrified to go see the movie who've now seen it with their kids, and they're going to roll out. They're going to go see it this weekend. So maybe it could be a huge hit. It could totally exceed. It could exceed the original.
Where do you think this is going to come in at, Aaron?
I think it's going to do very well. First of all, it has to, because it had double the production budget. So, the first one was made for about $35 million. The second one was made for between $60 and $70 million. So that right there, the adults cost a little bit more money than the kids do. But I agree with you. I think the marketing has been phenomenal. In fact, I will go on record and say this. I did not see the first It because I heard there's a huge spider in it. Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I will, but the marketing is so good for it too, that I passed a bus stop ad on my way here today before I ran out of gas on the highway. My car is still on the highway right now. But on my way here, I saw a billboard or a bus stop ad or something, and it was just for it too. And I thought, you know what? I should go home and watch the first one, have someone tell me where the spider is, because I want to see It Chapter 2 based on just the marketing. I haven't even seen the first one. And I think that there is something, all of the pumpkin spice latte drinkers are going to be rushing to see it.
Pumpkin spice latte drinkers.
People are so excited about Halloween. My Instagram is filled with people dressing their cats up like pumpkins. And there's Halloween fever happening everywhere. There's little mini Snickers bars all over the Rite Aids. People want their Halloween to start yesterday, and I think that they're going to start their Halloween this weekend by watching It Chapter 2. So I think it's going to do very well. I won't be surprised if it actually surpasses the original. But you're right, the fact that we have this crazy bar. We were just talking about whether or not Joker with Joaquin Phoenix would be able to beat, 70 million?
80. Yeah.
To beat 80 million, and now we're like, It Chapter 2 must be really shitty if it doesn't beat 120. No, these are massively high bars, and I agree with you, Rob. If it's a good film and you love it, then that's all that should matter. But if I'm the one holding the purse strings, I want it to definitely make back my budget money and then some.
And I think, wasn't the first It the most successful theatrically released horror film of all time?
Yes.
I can only imagine that this movie is going to have some great playability. John, you and I saw Scene. They've shown the clips from the scene, but we saw the whole scene.
Yes, we did.
Man, that was a good scene. That scene was so good, and I'm like,
We were saying,
What's in the scene?
It's the scene. They show a part of it in the trailers where, I forget the actress's name. From Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
Jessica Chastain.
Jessica Chastain.
Goes to an old woman's apartment.
Sitting in this old woman's apartment and just talking to this old woman, and then some really freaky things start happening. And they played a bit of an extended part of that at CinemaCon, and everybody in the theater was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Like everybody was just.
And that woman is not who she appears to
and
be.
And even just the stuff they showed in the trailer was like amazingly good.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see this. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this? Do you think that It Chapter 2 can exceed the results of It Chapter 1, or do you think it's going to come in a little bit under? And even if it does come under, is that really all that bad of a thing considering the huge numbers we're talking about? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know what you guys think. All right, guys.